Hi, so today I'm going to be doing a book review of Philip Pullman's Fairy Tales from the Brothers Grimm. This is a collection of 50 fairy tales and it was published in 2012. The edition is a Penguin Deluxe edition and it's a very beautiful edition. So I'll just show you guys what it looks like. I really like the cover and I find the spine is really beautiful. So it's deckled edges as well as French flaps. And the paper is really nice. It's this cream color and the font size is really nice and the paper is quite thick. And overall it's a very well produced book. This collection has 50 fairy tales and they are the original Brothers Grimm stories. However, Philip Pullman has tweaked them, so he's changed a couple aspects from each story. And what I really like about this is that there are the stories and then at the end of each story, I'll just find it, there's this chart here, and so it tells you similar stories in different books in different languages and the authors of other similar stories, and then he gives a bit of a discussion of the fairy tale. So he might be talking about the way it's been interpreted, or he could be explaining how it's different in different cultures and how the fairy tale has been changed in a different collection. A lot of the fairy tales I found were very similar to fairy tales that were found in a book that Italo Calvino actually collected, and his collection is called Italian Folk Tales. This collection is really great because some of the fairy tales are quite well known, for example Cinderella, and a lot of the fairy tales I just had no idea existed. I can't say I'm very well versed in fairy tales or in folklore or in mythology in general, so it was really nice to learn about new fairy tales. One of my favorite stories from this collection is called The Mouse, the Bird, and the Sausage, and it's a bit too long to tell you guys the story, but I thought it was pretty hilarious. And I would say my favorite part of the book was the discussions at the end of each fairy tale. It made me think a lot and it made me kind of analyze the patterns that these fairy tales had. Fairy tales and what we're told as children really affects how we end up seeing the world later on, and I definitely see a lot of the problems I find with current culture reflected in some of these stories, and so much of our culture is shaped by these stories, so I think it's really interesting to look back at them and to read them critically, so I really enjoyed that aspect. I don't think it's the kind of book that is meant for children because there are no illustrations, and I was looking through the Goodreads reviews and some people were saying that they didn't quite understand why there weren't any illustrations, and I can see that maybe people would be disappointed about that. However, I view this more as a collection of stories that are meant maybe for adults to read. I definitely recommend this collection if you were looking for a fairy tale collection, especially if you really enjoy the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. And if you want to springboard off of this book to other collections by different authors that are mentioned, I think that you would find this book quite worthwhile. There's also a really good bibliography of different works about fairy tales. So there are a couple books that I find really interesting that I'd like to check out. For example, there's a book by Marina Warner called From the Beast to the Blonde, and that I'm really interested in learning more about fairy tales and folk tales now. So if you have any suggestions about either collections of stories or even texts discussing fairy tales, I'd be very appreciative if you could let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys soon.